I have to have blood. It's all I can eat. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Rabid for 1977, taking place in the city of Montreal, Quebec, Canada, where a young lady named Rose is trying to pick up the pieces, pick up the pieces, while doctors pick pieces of her and try to put skin grafts back on her to reform her body after a terrible, horrific, not so very good motorcycle accident after her boyfriend Hart cannot get out of the goddamn way of a van that's literally parked right in the middle of the goddamn road because the dad couldn't get his glorious mustache to decide how to basically crank the shaft and get out of the way. So, yeah, thankfully, the experimental procedures go great. Until it becomes obvious that Rose has a little bit of an affliction where she needs to consume human blood. And then, the more she consumes human blood, the more other people basically turn absolutely rabid. In a movie called Rabid. How fucking dare you be so on the fucking nose? So this movie was written and directed by David Cronenberg. Obviously, because you would just have to look at the first 2 minutes of this goddamn movie to know it's a Cronenberg movie. If you're unfamiliar with David Cronenberg, I actually did retro review one of his movies a little bit after this, The Brood. It had a neat little idea, but wasn't all that great. He also did Scanners. He did the 1996 Crash, and he also did The Fly. I may retro review The Fly, and I may surprise you guys with my opinions on that. So, basically, yes, you have a lady spreading disease because she is played by Marilyn Chambers. And given how Marilyn Chambers went a different route with her movie future, it kind of fits. That's mean. I have no idea why I said that, but nevertheless, the lovely Marilyn Chambers, who she gets the topless scenes here and actually looks so sexy like Marilyn Chambers did at that point. And, yeah, her boyfriend, husband, I'm not actually totally sure. Hart, played by Frank Moore. He is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on here. And, yeah, from there we basically just get a body horror movie that's got a little bit of social commentary about how a big city would stop a widespread disease and stop it in the, maybe most humane way possible, or maybe in the most inhumane way possible. And there are some nice goopy body horror effects with a lot of Alka-Seltzer being used and some, greenage and drippage from the eyes and stuff like that. And it's not what I would call a great movie. It's certainly not up there with the George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead. I mean, granted, Dawn of the Dead had a much bigger budget than this. This is like $30,000 Canadian in 1977, so I don't know what the fuck that would translate to. Not all that much. And look, the acting is admittedly pretty goddamn shit. I mean, it's really not goddamn good at all. Though I do have to say that for good world building and the fact that it keeps the pace up, it doesn't necessarily have quite a rabid pace. I would argue Mads actually did a better job with that. Granted, Mads did come out last year. This came out all the way in 1977. It still had some good stuff to it. You have Susan Ronan, who was Mindy, and you have a kind of some amusing scenes. I'm gonna get into spoilers. I mean, sorry, the movie's been out for nearly 50 fucking years, but I did like some of the attack scenes and some of the people turning rabid and stuff like that. That actually was kind of funny. They slam us right into the movie where basically there's a motorcycle ride. Yeah, Mustache Dad, or Mustache Granddad, before Mustache Dad and Twilight came along. That's a shout out to Riff Tracks fans. Yeah, they basically can't get their van out of the way, and then Marilyn Chambers gets pinned down by the motorcycle. Hart, shockingly, is okay, besides an arm issue. And then there's discussion about getting proper funding for this keloid clinic. I like how it had the Kmart logo. And because it's Montreal, it has that weird Canadian English. And I'm not knocking at all, by the way, but it's just that weird French-Canadian English hybrid. Where some of the stuff doesn't make all that much sense to an American, because I've never been to Canada, even though I'm only about 75 miles from the Canadian border. And naturally, because you have the Canadian healthcare system, some people get weighed on quickly, some people don't get weighed on at all. That's what I've heard. I've never actually, again, been to Canada, and we have a fucked up healthcare system here, too. So, yeah, the skin grabs kind of made me laugh because they, like, basically peel it off with, like, a giant potato peeler. I don't know why that made me laugh so much. And, yeah, she's got to sit here. We got to do these weird experiments and stuff like that. And then a month later, she's still in a coma until she's not. Because then Marilyn Chambers rises and decides to go consume human flesh. She does this by a weird vulva in her armpit. It's one of the many holes Marilyn Chambers had. I don't know why I've decided to take shots at Marilyn Chambers because everybody else has. I mean, she's been dead for like 15-something years, but nevertheless. Meanwhile, Hart is back in Montreal. So I don't actually know where... I actually don't know where the fuck they actually are, necessarily. Because I'm not that familiar with Canadian geography, but nevertheless, Hart is concerned because his girlfriend is in the goddamn, in a goddamn coma. He has a friend named Murray, played by Joe Silver, good character actor. And, yeah, this is basically just like The Brood, where they are separating the husband and the wife, and I mean, I don't know why that amuses me so goddamn much, but just you see, like, similarities there. And Marilyn looked nice, don't get me wrong, do not misinterpret, she was lovely, she was absolutely lovely. She ends up she ends up infecting a guy named Lloyd. There are worse ways to go. Kind of hugging him and getting the weird pit vulva thing with this nasty little tooth going out like that. Anyway, so nevertheless, I can't do stuff like that because I don't have the prosthetics. I'm not gonna have the budget for that. But yeah, we just get more infections. We get more ridiculousness. There's like 5 rooms in this clinic. I think it's the same building they use for The Brood. In fact, the more I think about, or the same clinic. So yeah, Hart doesn't really make much of an effort to check on his girlfriend, seemingly. Like, his character's all over the goddamn map. The acting is sus, as the kids say. Lloyd ends up, infected, and he's still bleeding from his wound, and because this rabies is a rabies thing, so, you get the rabies shot, maybe it'll help this kind of stuff. It's like It Lives by Night, if It Lives by Night was actually directed properly. So yeah, he kills a cab driver on a lone, icy road in Canada. I know I'm not being very specific. And then it was so funny that the cab ends up actually blowing up, despite the fact that it barely hit this car. I don't know why that made me laugh so much. So, at one point, Joe Silver's hair was trying to just escape the film while he had a baby with it. I mean, maybe he was trying to escape the baby. That was an ugly-ass kid. I'm sorry. So, that being said... we finally see that she's got the pit vulva, because why not? And, yeah, the rabidness is just, taking over the countryside and the city side. I didn't like how the doctor got infected. And it was hilarious because he chopped off a nurse's finger and bit it, or tried to do that, and then attacked others and everything. And it was just amusing. It was amusing. Rose takes off. And there was a doctor named Bill who's, he lost his hair in the divorce because he had a skullet going on. And, Dr. Kelloyd had, Alka-Seltzer rabies because he was saying, blah, 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 that kind of, the acting is just not good. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not good. Good actors in this, and Marilyn Chambers, who, there was one point where she was thrashing herself around face first on the bed. Something she would actually be very good at later. Why am I taking shots at Marilyn Chambers? What'd she ever do to me? So, there's a doctor that actually reminded me of, if you basically took Javier Bardem and put him in the 70s. I mean, seriously, that's actually what I thought. But I said, Le Doctor Le Toupee, because when, his hairpiece is cut off, there will be hell to pay. Yeah, we gotta fix this rabies epidemic before it gets worse. Well, yeah, there was this funny point where actually just a bit before that, we have Rose getting with getting a ride from a trucker, and then she ends up trying to eat some human food, throws it up, and ends up infecting him, and then that guy ends up trying to kill his boss. Which, I mean, I don't know if anybody needs rabies to have ever wanted to basically do in their boss or a nasty supervisor. Don't do that, by the way, and don't claim rabies. Probably not going to work. But Rose basically is not doing a very good job hiding the fact that she's completely batshit insane. She makes it back to Montreal while Joe Silver and Frank Moore are trapped in a place called Camelford or something like that. That has to be like just a little hamlet, a sublet of Montreal. But there's like a smut theater where she ends up killing a guy because he reaches and is going to feel her up and everything because everybody else has. And the pit vulva gets her, which is gets him. And then I don't know why this made me laugh, but there's this one point where Dr. Toupee basically is riding with a couple of people, including a guy who's dressed like one of the Bolsheviks. But there's this construction crew, the mutant destruction crew as I call them, and they basically jam like one of those like concrete jackhammer concrete like breaker or something like that. It's almost like Jaws of Life, but they end up dragging out the driver, and the Bolshevik guy gets in the car and they drive away. It's a big old station wagon, and it looks like you need about 3 parking spaces of basically width just to turn that thing around. And yeah, we're going to declare martial law, says the Prime Minister, or somebody claiming to be the Prime Minister. Good thing we don't have weird shit like that going on here. Nevertheless, we just basically we have Mindy taking care of Rose. Hart's trying to get back to her. There's a funny part where they were in a mall, and then this infected guy basically gets this one guy that was creeping on Rose. Meanwhile, Mindy sees an infected person attack somebody on the subway. And the way they were shooting it almost looked like the cameraman was like about to be tripped. Like, I don't know why. Like, the cameraman's got like a wall and people have like 3 feet of space to try and get around because Mindy, for some reason, is just stuck in like one shot. I don't know why that made me laugh. But then, because it's Christmas, you have a really, really attractive woman as an elf. Good, or Santa's helper. My goodness. I wonder what she's doing. But then, this this officer, security guard guy, cop, whatever, has got almost a Tommy gun-like thing and shoots an infected guy, a rabid guy, but also shoots Santa. I don't know why that made me lose it. I actually had to pause the movie because I was laughing so hard. And martial law has come to Montreal. Mindy vows to take care of Rose. That ends up being her undoing. Oh, and also, by the way, earlier Murray was taking care of a really ugly kid. Well, it's implied that the ugly kid died. Hooray! Oh, yes, and he gets attacked by his wife. We don't see them again. We're really rapidly getting through this. And Frank Moore is just being besieged by besieged by one infected person. They get shot. The Prime Minister actually says it's better just to shoot them. Just shoot them if you think they're infected. Because that's good. Let's just take out citizens. To be fair, protecting yourself, but still. Oh, you think they're infected? You shot them? Well, okay, we can't really say anything. Nevertheless, there's this cleanup crew of 4 people that, just 2 guys in hazmat suits, because I think that's all they could afford. And they have a garbage truck. Gee, I wonder what they're putting in the garbage truck. It's not garbage. It's bodies. I would have liked a little bit more expansion on this, but nevertheless. He gets back to the apartment. Mindy's being chewed on. To be fair, I think Marilyn Chambers and Susan Ronan doing that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world in 1977. That being said, goes from 0 to 60. It's you. You're the one doing this. You're the one causing all this. And then they kind of have an argument where he's like, I can't be with you, and stuff like that. It would be hard to be with somebody that has a pit vulva and is killing people. It would be hard to do that. But he ends up getting sent down some stairs. She doesn't kill him. She takes some blood out of one guy and then locks herself in a room with him, and she's going to experiment. But then she ends up getting killed by this guy. Apparently she can die, I guess. Then she gets thrown in the back of the truck. This, by the way, is while while Fred Hart is yelling at her to get out of the room. You know, Hearts do not have the greatest luck in Montreal. And on that note, yeah, she's throwing the trash truck and that's it. So yeah, that is it for Rabid. Not a bad movie. Fairly good, all things considered, compared to some Cronenberg projects. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.